You will never, ever be in my thoughts after this.
I will break out soon, and I will kill more.
Because you took mine away. Sincerely hope that whatever it was you wanted so badly that you felt the need to murder my son.
This is TJ Lane, who's facing charges for multiple murders in Ohio. Lane, who was 18 years old at the time, wreaked havoc on Chardon High School in Ohio in February 2012. He unleashed a horrifying rampage, gunning down 3 of his classmates, Daniel Parmator, Demetrius Hewlin, and Russell King Jr., and injuring 3 others. If you thought Lane's psychotic behavior was bad, wait till you see how he acted in court. On the day of his trial, Lane decided to make a fashion statement just to add insult to injury. He wore a blue button-down shirt, and as if that wasn't enough, he unbuttoned it to reveal a white t-shirt with the word killer, boldly written across the front.
Thank you, Your Honor. To my left is Nicholas Burling, Judge of County System.
But here's where things take a truly disturbing turn. During Lane's sentencing hearing, he showed zero remorse and behaved in the most despicable manner imaginable. As the families of his victims poured their hearts out in their victim impact statements, Lane had the audacity to laugh, smile, and even spew vile and unprintable words at them.
Saying pull the trigger that killed your son, masturbates to memory. Love you.
What kind of monster does that? Daniel Parmentor's mother, Dina Parmentor, also had some strong words for Lane, but he only chuckled.
My son Danny, you are a killer. You're a pathetic excuse for a human being. In fact, you're not even a human being. You don't deserve to be called human. You're a monster and will forever be titled a triple murderer. I have many more words I wish I could say that would express my pure disgust and hatred for you. But unlike you, as we've seen today, I obey the law. And that's why I'm standing here, a free person. Something you will never be. I hope you have a cold, rough, unkind, harsh prison life with monsters like yourself.
Despite his antics, the victims' families stood strong, condemning Lane's repulsive behavior and calling him out for the cold-blooded killer he is. They stated their hope for him to be locked up for the rest of his life.
I strongly feel that he deserves to spend the rest of his life in prison without any option of parole.
And treated like the animal he truly is.
You need to spend the rest of your life in prison with monsters like yourself.
One survivor, Nick Walczak, who was left paralyzed after Lane shot him multiple times, was present in court. The judge himself expressed his disbelief at Lane's actions, stating that the motive behind the rampage was still unknown. In the end, Lane was sentenced to 3 life terms in prison without the possibility of parole. There's no doubt that Lane's crimes and behavior in court were disgusting. However, it was not the only time a convict laughed in court. There's the case of Tyrell Webster, who's facing charges for the gruesome murder of Grover Cleveland Watson Jr. in Ohio. In April 2012, Tyrell shot and killed Grover Cleveland Watson Jr. during an argument at a home on Osage Avenue. According to Watson's sister, Carolyn O'Brien, the argument escalated after Webster turned violent toward his own pregnant girlfriend. Tyrell Webster was born to a life of crime. He was the brother of Lonnie Webster, the notorious tri-state killer who's serving decades in prison. Although his crime was horrible, his attitude in court was nothing short of disgraceful. During the sentencing hearing, the victim's sister addressed Judge Lubers, recounting how her brother was killed on his birthday.
And he was taken from us on my brother's birthday, which hurts very.
She initially expressed forgiveness towards Webster, explaining that he didn't fully comprehend the consequences of his actions.
Mouth just to ask God to forgive you because you didn't know what you were doing.
This is when Tyrell laughed. O'Brien, who is legally blind, asked the judge for assistance in locating Tyrell in the courtroom so she could look him in the eye while speaking. As O'Brien spoke, Judge Lubers informed her that Webster was laughing at that moment.
Just so you know, he's laughing right now.
O'Brien fired back with a powerful response, telling Webster that his laughter would soon fade once he was locked behind prison walls for the rest of his life. She even made a rather colorful remark, implying that he would become somebody's girlfriend there.
I really don't care about this because you know what, you laughing at But the moment they get you behind those prison walls for the rest of your life, you will be somebody's girlfriend. And that smile will no longer be on your face. It will be tears.
If there were hopes of any leniency for Tyrell, it quickly vanished during his sentencing hearing when Judge Jody Lubers asked routine questions about his education. Webster arrogantly responded, "Do that matter?" and let out an audible groan.
Do that matter?
Yes, it does.
The jury wasted no time deliberating after the 2-week trial. In just 1 hour, they returned with a guilty verdict, convicting Webster of murder. In the end, Webster received a sentence of 18 years to life in prison. However bad you think Tyrell Webster's case was, it can't be compared to the infamous case of Danta Wright, who's facing charges of murder in Detroit, Michigan. Wright recently pleaded guilty to armed robbery, felony firearm, and second-degree murder in the tragic shooting death of Jordan Clee, an 18-year-old. Wright didn't hold back the details. He confessed that he and 2 of his buddies were out to rob Clee when he callously shot him in the back of the head. As if his brutal murder was not bad enough, Wright put up a behavior that shocked everyone in court. The 17-year-old convicted killer seemed to think his sentencing hearing was a comedy show, as Clee's mother bravely stood up to make her victim impact statement during Wright's sentencing hearing.
His cousin, she's asked me to read this on her behalf. Jordan Michael Clee, born July 26, 1998. Murdered October 4th, 2016. I've lost my only child, my son, my baby, my friend. More than that, I've lost laughter and love. I no longer have the hope of having grandchildren. I've lost the enjoyment of holidays and birthdays and of everyday life. But now in my life, I walk this journey alone. I no longer have that luxury because that was carelessly and cruelly taken.
What does this kid do? He starts smiling and acting as if he did nothing wrong. He even postured like a top celebrity and told his family he would be out soon.
I'll be home soon, R.I.P. Keon, I love my family.
Even the judge couldn't believe his eyes.
That's all you got to say.
Judge David Swartz had had enough of Wright's disrespectful behavior. He considered rejecting his plea deal, taking him to trial for a harsher sentence. Swartz called out Wright, saying,
"But watching you sit there, smile and laugh and shake your head like this was no big deal, I'm very tempted to just say, I'm not going to accept this sentence agreement. We'll go to trial, and if you're convicted of felony murder, you'll go to prison for the rest of your life. That means you'll die there." That's what I'm tempted to do.
And honestly, I can't blame the judge for feeling tempted to throw the book at him. But Wright's attorney jumped in to defend his client's behavior. He said Wright's constant smiling wasn't meant to be disrespectful.
Your Honor, my client asked me to apologize to the court. His smiling was in no way meant as disrespectful either to the family, to the victim, or to this court. My client is 17 years old. He has some emotional problems and frankly was scared.
In the end, justice did prevail, although not as harshly as some might have hoped. Wright was sentenced to 23 to 50 years in prison. It can be said that Danta Wright got away with his unremorseful and provoking behavior. However, it's not every time that infuriating smirks from convicts are ignored, like in the infamous case of Michael Madison, who's facing charges for multiple murders in Ohio. Madison, 38, was a convicted sex offender turned cold-blooded killer who was found guilty of multiple counts of aggravated murder and kidnapping. His gruesome crimes involved the murders of 38-year-old Angela Deskins, 28-year-old Shatisha Sheely, and 18-year-old Sherelda Terry. Madison's crimes were truly horrifying. The victims' bodies were discovered wrapped in garbage bags near the apartment building where he resided. The stench emanating from a shared garage caught the attention of a cable television worker, leading to gruesome discoveries. His lack of remorse and how he acted in court are even more horrifying. Things took an unexpected turn when Sherelda Terry's father, Van Terry, was called to give a victim impact statement. When he walked up to the stand, he turned to face the monster that killed his teenage daughter, and Michael smirked at him. What happened next was unpredictable. In a fit of raw emotion, he lunged at Madison, trying to get his hands on the smirking serial killer and wipe away the silly laugh from his face. Chaos ensues as courtroom deputies wrestle the distraught father away. In contrast, Madison and others scramble to get out of harm's way. The courtroom scuffle, however intense, didn't deter the proceedings. Once Terry was removed, the judge carried on like a true professional. On the other hand, Madison seemed completely unfazed by the ordeal. There were no injuries or signs of remorse. just a cold, heartless smirk on his face. Despite Madison's defense attorneys highlighting his troubled childhood and history of abuse, the jury recommended the ultimate punishment, death. Judge McDonnell agreed, emphasizing the horrific nature of the crimes and the need for justice.
You stripped them from the waist down. You folded them in half, binding them so that their feet were up by their ears. You wrapped them in multiple layers of trash bags, and you discarded them.
Some killers may only laugh at the victims. However, there are those who do not only laugh, but threaten to kill more people, like Luis Enrique Monroy Bracamontes, who's facing charges for multiple homicides in Sacramento, California. Bracamontes is on trial for the senseless killing of 2 Northern California sheriff's deputies. Bracamontes is a Mexican citizen who repeatedly entered the United States illegally, while his wife is American. Bracamontes' wife, Janelle Monroy, is also charged in the deputies' slayings. The defense team has argued that the anti-immigrant sentiment fueled by President Trump has tainted their client's chances of receiving a fair trial. They even tried to enter a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity, but to no avail. If you think murdering 2 cops is bad enough, Mr. Bracamontes will shock you with his outburst and lack of remorse in court. The prosecutor, Rod Norgard, starts his opening statement, describing the intense firefight that tragically claimed the life of Deputy Danny Oliver. Detective Mike Davis left Deputy Scott Brown retreating under heavy fire. Bracamontes laughed and called Deputy Brown a coward. As if that was not enough, Bracamontes proudly declared his intention to kill more officers, showing zero remorse for his heinous actions. But it doesn't stop there. He taunted the jury, claiming he would break out of prison, kill more people, and show complete disdain for the entire trial process.
Break up soon, and I will kill more.
The judge, Steve White, had to step in and warn Bracamontes to remain silent.
Be silent. Be silent.
While the defense attorneys argued that these outbursts were clear signs that their client was mentally unfit to stand trial. Can you blame them? Despite all the chaos and disruption caused by Bracamontes, the judge has ruled that he is competent to stand trial. He was found guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances and sentenced to death.